Hey, welcome to the Butch Yoga podcast. I am your host, Joelle, and we are here to talk about spiritual ideas from a queer perspective. That's what we do on the Butch Yoga podcast. So get ready for some of that. And today we are talking about something it's really important to everyone, no matter what. Like, no matter who you are, what you do, this can apply to you. So I love that. I feel like lots of stuff, it's like, well, maybe this doesn't apply to you though, but this, no matter what, you can like find some kind of way to make it apply to your life. Because what are we talking about today? We're talking about doing stuff. What? Yeah, that's right. Just doing stuff. Doing anything. Doing like literally anything is what we're talking about today. And what's like the spiritual guidance on how to do stuff, how to do it in a good way. And so, okay, when I say like spiritual guidance on like how to do stuff, I don't mean like it's like these are instructions on like how to pray or something that's specifically spiritual. No, this can apply to any stuff that you do in your life, from like washing the dishes, stuff you do at home, to work, stuff you do for your job, or like even hanging out, like stuff that you do just for fun. Like you could apply what we're talking about to that too. So, okay. Like as we're talking about like spiritual perspective on how to do stuff, maybe you're thinking, "Huh, that's interesting because usually it seems like religions tell you what not to do." Like I feel like is like telling you like don't do this. And they give you like a whole big list of things that you're not supposed to do. Um, but there are also some ideas, and today we're going to be talking about ideas from Buddhism and Hinduism that tell you about how to do stuff. And okay, so like I also want to say that in Buddhism and Hinduism, respectively, they do have many rules. There are lots and lots of rules on things that you should not do, um, and also things that you should do. So in Buddhism, there's a whole system which, if you've studied Buddhism even a little bit, you've probably heard of the Noble Eightfold Path. So that's like 8 different parts of like what you should be doing in your life and like not doing, that's like the steps of like how you live a good life. And in yoga philosophy from Hinduism, there are many guidelines that are called the yamas and niyamas, which maybe you've heard this if you've gotten more into yoga philosophy, that those are different things that you're supposed to do and not do, like the usual kind of stuff, like don't lie, don't kill, that kind of stuff, pretty like basic. A lot of it is, it's like, okay, that makes sense. That's not too like far out or anything. Checks out, sure. And anyway, there's a lot of those. There's like many different, well, I'm like, well, it's not so many, but it's more than what we're going to talk about today. We're not going to talk about the Noble Eightfold Path today. We're not going to talk about the yamas and niyamas today, but I wanted to like let you know about those in case you're interested in finding out more, you can do a quick search on either of those and find lots more info for more background on like doing stuff or not doing stuff. But yeah, that's a whole lot to keep up with. Today we are going to just be talking about 3 steps. Three, only three. I like when there's 5 things or less. Personally, I'm like if it's like more than 5, I'm starting to like lose track of things. With like everything. I'm like, if you give me like more than 5 moves to do, I'm gonna like lose track of them. If you give me more than. Anyway, so we're talking about just three parts today of what you do. And what are those 3 parts? So, okay, we're talking about how to do stuff. And we're talking about it in a way that this could apply to like anything you do, which I think that's pretty amazing personally, that there is like this framework that you can apply to any any action that you take. I think that's awesome. I like dare you to come up with an example that this framework doesn't work for. Or like, if you can think of something, please let me know. I would just be really interested because anything that I can think of, you can apply this to. Okay, so what is it? Let's get to it. Um 3 steps to follow when doing stuff. The first one is your intention. Like what's your intention? Getting in a good place with your intention. The second part is like the actual action of what you're doing, that you do it the best that you can. Whatever it is you're doing, that you do it the best that you're able to do it. And then the third part is whatever the result is, that then you are done with that thing. You're done. It's over. You let it go. Okay, so I said those were 3 steps. It's not exactly that they're steps, it's more like they're three. All right, so we're going to go much more into detail on that. But as we go into detail, I want to not use my words. I'm going to use words from a Buddhist teacher named Sharon Salzberg, who, if you've studied more like Buddhist stuff, maybe you've heard of her. She's a great teacher. Just yeah, amazing channel for this wisdom. And so I'm going to share a quote from Sharon Salzberg. And this is a long one, so I'm just going to read this once now. Usually I repeat quotes, but this is long. So I'm just going to read it once. Although I might read it later, but flip like going back through, but let's I'll listen in for this quote. All right, here we go. From the Buddhist perspective, you can divide an action into 3 parts. The first and most significant part is the intention underlying the action, the motivation from which it springs. Traditional Buddhism would say this is the karma. The karmic seed is in the intention. Everything rests on the tip of motivation. When we talk about compassion and loving kindness, we're really talking about motivation. We're talking about the energetic field out of which we act and move. The second part is skillfulness with which we act. For example, suppose you have a beautiful motivation of wanting to say something loving to somebody. Skillfulness might involve determining whether this is best said privately or shouted out across a crowded room. The third part is the immediate result, or the result that we can see. For example, out of a beautiful motivation, you could give someone a gift, and you give it as skillfully as you can. But perhaps they have just received terrible news, and they're not able to receive your gift wholeheartedly, and they fail to say thank you. This does not mean that you have not acted well. It just means the conditions were beyond your control. There's a tremendous emphasis in Buddhist teachings on transforming your intention to come from a place of love and compassion. To increase the power of your skillfulness through paying attention and learning how to let go of the immediate result with equanimity and peace. Wow. Okay. So, whoo, she really just said it all there. She just like really broke it down. I love that quote. That quote, I'm like, there's so much in there about, yeah, how to do stuff, how to act. It's really like amazing to reflect on that. And so we're going to go deeper into each of those three parts now. All right. So we've got these three parts. Let's start with the first one, right? Let's start with the first one. That seems like a good place to start. So the first part is the intention. Oh, the intention. And it reminds me of a very well-known saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Maybe you've heard that one before. And I think that's so important to remember. Oh, hi. I've got a little cat on my lap now. Ooh. Okay, stay focused. What was I saying? Oh, right, hell. Um, the road to hell paved with good intentions. What does that mean? It means like if you just have good intentions, it might not get you to the place where you want to go. It might lead to a very bad place, actually, if what you have is just good intentions. Like that you need more than good intentions to like act in a good way in the world. And when I say good, not like good, like oh to be good, but like to act in a way that's going to be impactful in like positive ways. I don't know. This is a whole different topic that I could get off like on a tangent of talking about like good and bad or positive and negative. Like but let's just stick with me. I'm gonna keep figuring that out as I go along here with the podcast of how to talk about things being good. Like what is good? But yeah, gonna try to stay on this topic for now, or I could just go all over the place with that. Um, okay, so we're getting back to intention. An intention alone isn't enough. Like if you have a good intention, that's not enough to mean that your action will be good. Um, Like, so in the quote, she gives the example of you could have a really beautiful intention of wanting to say something loving to somebody. But if you do it in a way that's not skillful, and I love this word of thinking of like skillfulness in action, which that's like the intention plus awareness of what's going on, of like, okay, you have this intention that you really like want to say something nice to someone. What a beautiful intention. But it also needs to be combined with this awareness of what's going on. You can't only be in your motivation. You also, which is more of like, that's kind of like the internal part that you have. And then the action is like bringing that out into the world. And as you do that, it's like you got to check in with what's happening in the world and not only your intention that's inside you, no matter how beautiful that can be. You got to like check it with what's going on outside and how that matches up. So the example here was wanting to say something really nice to somebody, but checking of what are the circumstances? Like, can you have an opportunity to say that to them like one on one instead of like if let's say you're at a meeting with this person and you want to say something nice to them, make sure it's an appropriate moment in like what's happening, like maybe wait until after the meeting to have a chance to say that to them, or wait until like a point in the meeting where they're like, okay, does anybody have anything they want to share? But you don't like burst out in the middle of the meeting the moment that that thought occurs to you, saying to that person, hey, I love that shirt. Where'd you get it? Like even if that's, you just have such a beautiful intention, it's like, no, that's not acting like with awareness of how that's going to influence the other people who are also there, or even how that might make that person feel having that like announced so publicly. And there's so much stuff with thinking of the skillfulness of an action, which there's not like rules for that. There's not like, okay, and these are all the ways that you make sure that your action is skillful. No. Um, it comes down to awareness. And that's something that you can practice. That's something that, I mean, that's part of what we do in like a yoga practice, in meditation practice. We are practicing to develop, to grow our awareness, to help us notice more of what's going on, not only in our minds, like the moment that we think it, but also to be aware of like what's going on in the world more generally so that we can like come into different situations not only focused on ourselves but also tuned into what's going on around us and how to interact in ways that are going to be most beneficial for everyone, for us and for our intentions, like when you have an intention, you want to carry that through as best that you can. And having more awareness is going to help you do that. Like, it's just, that's like a thing about awareness. It just like helps you do anything better when you have more awareness of what's going on. And then, okay. the third part here. So we talked about the motivation and intention. Or no, motivation and intention are the same part. We talked about the motivation, intention, and then the action, like the action itself. And I think we are going to go back and talk more about the motivation and intention piece too. We're gonna jump around a little, but right now we're going to keep moving and get to talking about the results. Because okay, so you come in, you have your intention that's like, of a nice thing, and then you act as skillfully as you can. You do the best you can to notice the circumstances and to do what you want to do as skillfully as you can, with as much awareness as you can to do that thing. And then the third part is about the result. So you did it. You did whatever you were going to do. Now it's done. Now you're seeing what's the immediate result of that. And in this example of the quote, she gave the example of you give someone a gift and you did your best. You had like a beautiful intention in giving the gift. You did your best to find a good moment, but sometimes even with as much as you can try to make sure that the circumstances are as ideal as possible for doing what you want to do, you still don't know everything. You still can't know everything that's going on, and maybe that person, yeah, got some bad news. Something happened, and you didn't know that, and you're like offering them this gift, like, here, and they are just like, oh, thanks. And you it's like, oh shit, like, you maybe you wanted more of a positive response than that, maybe, like, I mean, sure, who wouldn't want that? That you give someone a gift that you're excited about giving them, you had like a beautiful intention in giving it, you try to find the best moment, and then you give it to them, and it just, they seem like not happy at all. And what can you do about that? What can you do about that? I'll tell you what you can do. You let it go. You let it go. That's all you can do at that point. Like, you could not let it go, but then that's just going to mess you up. Then you're like, then you can go into all kinds of thoughts of like, why did I do that? I just wanted to try to do something nice, but I like messed it up. Oh, fuck, why do I always screw things up somehow? Like those kinds of stories. That's what happens if you don't let it go and things didn't go how you wanted it to. Also, even if things went great, not letting it go could still mess you up. Not letting it go can still, yeah, like, throw you for a loop of, it's honestly, it's like, it's harder for me to think of those examples. Oh, hang on. I got one. Okay. So, this was going to be another example that I used. Okay. We're going to like go into this whole other full example and keep going from here. Okay. So, let's go to an example of someone who is practicing yoga. Thought that'd be a good example, right? It's like Butch yoga. Let's talk about some yoga. Okay. So, imagine you're getting ready to do some yoga. Or let's not say you. Let's say a different person. Let's say it's a different person so that it's not feeling as like personal. If it helps to make it, that you're thinking about yourself, then do that. But I'm going to put it as another person, example person. Or I'm like, should I talk about it like it's me? No, we're gonna do example person. Example person. Okay, example person. It's not you. It's not me. This is just imaginary example person who we are talking about here. And they are getting ready to practice some yoga. What's what's their intention? First, let's do an example of like how not to do it. um, and okay, something that I want to clarify. When I say this is an example of how not to do it, it doesn't mean that if someone's doing this, that they are like bad or wrong or anything. They're just like figuring stuff out, but this is more of an example of like this is like the like teaching moment example of like this is not as much what we're going for. These kinds of attitudes are not as helpful to like being successful in doing what you want to do and in like feeling like happy and peaceful. It's not that it's bad or wrong. It's just not as helpful if you approach things this way. So, okay, I just want to clarify about that too. All right, so here we go with our example of doing things in a way that is not as supportive, not as helpful. Okay, so imaginary person, they're getting ready for their yoga practice. What's their intention? Let's say that their unhelpful intention that they're coming into their yoga practice with is that they want to touch their toes. They want to be able to touch their toes. Um, that's not wrong. That's not bad. But like, what would be a more helpful intention, let's say? Maybe a more helpful intention would be like wanting to take some quiet time that's just for them, wanting to show themselves some love, wanting to connect with their body, wanting to care for their body, wanting to move in ways that feel good. Like all of those feel like more more helpful intentions than like wanting to touch your toes or wanting to attain like a certain like achievement or something. Um all right. And then so that's like the intention part. So that's like example intention part of like less helpful intention versus like intentions that are going to be more helpful. Then there's the action itself, the skillfulness. And oh, God, if this person is coming in saying that they want to touch their toes, they they might be so focused on that they are stretching in ways that don't actually help their body as much. Maybe they're pushing themselves to reach their toes and but it like doesn't actually feel so good. Um or maybe they're trying but they're still not reaching even though they're trying their best and they're not reaching. And okay, that is what it is. But like, as opposed to what would be more skillfulness there? Let's say instead of trying to push to reach the toes, more skillfulness could be reaching as far as they can reach and relaxing there and letting themselves just breathe into that instead of pushing past the point of like discomfort to like reach the toes. Yeah. Yeah, just letting themselves do it as best as they can and then stopping there. Okay, so that's like the skillfulness part. The third part, the letting go. So, all right, going to this example, the person trying to reach their toes. Let's say they don't reach their toes, even though that was their intention, and they tried so hard. They tried so hard, and they were like, reaching when they didn't get it. Then afterwards, they feel disappointed, and not just because it's okay to feel emotions. This isn't about not feeling emotions. It's about letting them go after they come up. Like maybe after this person was not able to reach their toes, they feel bad about themselves and like say things like, "Oh, I'll never be able to do this. This isn't for me. I can't even touch my toes. So how am I supposed to be able to do anything?" And maybe then they like go on Instagram and look at like yoga hashtags, which I don't recommend. Don't go on Instagram and look at the yoga hashtags. It's terrible. Oh my God. Just okay, quick side note. I was looking at the hashtag of like yoga for beginners on Instagram and it terrified me. I was like, if that's what they're calling yoga for beginners, like I'm not even a beginner. Like I'm not like no. What? What? So, okay. Okay, so that was a little side note. So, all right, our imaginary person in this example, they were like doing some yoga. They like wanted to touch their toes, they couldn't, and now they can't let it go. Now they can't let it go and they're like beating themselves up about it and they're like going on Instagram and looking at all these images of like yoga for beginners and they're like, "Oh, if this is the beginners, I'll never get it." And they're just like feeling all upset and like they can't do it. Um yeah, yeah, it's just, they feel bad and that does not help them want to do yoga more. It doesn't help them want to do anything more except things that like support them in feeling bad and support them in like the identity of like not being good enough. Like then it's easier to want to go into different things that are going to reinforce that idea that they're not good enough. Because they're like, that's and then just like wanting to do more that like backs up that belief. So, okay, that was the unhelpful example of like they're not they're not letting it go. What would letting it go look like? Um well, I'm very familiar with this cuz I sometimes I can touch my toes, but sometimes I can't. And when I can't, it's okay. I don't beat myself up over it. I don't think about it all day. And maybe this person wasn't thinking about it all day, but they let it, like get to them. When I can't touch my toes when I'm reaching towards them, it's just like, okay, all right, well, that's where I am right now. And I don't make a big thing about it. It's just like, that's how it is. Okay, I see that's where my body is right now. Um, it gives me information about, like, oh, maybe I haven't done a stretch like that in a while, and maybe I want to do that more regularly. If I can notice that I want to build more flexibility in my body. But it's not like saying that, oh, you suck, Joelle, because you can't touch your toes. It's like, no, this is just information that you're getting. It's neutral. And then you can act from there. Then it's like the cycle can begin anew of, okay, once you've gone through the intention, the action, the letting it go, then it can begin again. Then I can say, okay, well, I'm noticing that I'm not reaching my toes. Then I could go into what was the cycle of the person from the beginning. The intention was wanting to touch their toes. Then I could go into like that whole loop again, or go into like, what was that more supportive intention of, oh, I want to do yoga to connect with my body, instead of just having this intention of, I want to touch my toes. It's like, whenever we do something, we have an opportunity to go back into this cycle of the intention, the action, the letting it go, and deciding how you want to go into it. What intention are you going into it? And it's like the letting it go is such an important part, because if we don't let it go, then we like carry that energy with us into the cycle, and we're bringing that like not letting it go into like our next intention of what we're doing, and then we're just like stuck in that cycle. um Also, wow, on those examples, I was like, it's another person, and then at the end I like made it me. So thank you for hanging along with my jumbled examples. I am doing my best to talk about this as skillfully as possible, but also I like let go of what has actually happened, because otherwise, see, this is what happened. If I didn't let it go, then I could just keep talking about that for the whole rest of the podcast, about how I like messed up on the examples. And it's okay. It's like, no, see, what's going to be so much better is if we keep going with the intention of, I'm like, oh, wait, what was my intention in like this podcast? What's the intention? It's like to share information that can be helpful, can be supportive, can be like uplifting for you. And yeah, and just doing that, in doing that, I'm going to do my best. And then we'll just see how that goes. And whatever happens, then I'm like letting go of that as it goes. Because otherwise, I would never be able to keep doing this, because I would just get stuck in like analyzing and judging whatever it was that I said before. And that doesn't help anybody. That doesn't help anybody, like that's just not going to do anything. So, yeah, so that's not what we're going to do, is have me get hung up on my intention. We're going to let it go. Let it go. So, okay. So we talked about these three parts. And there's okay, I have some more notes of things that I want to say here that I'm like, oh, this is important. Okay. So we talked about intention, how intention alone isn't enough. We need these other pieces, the acting skillfully and the letting go. But acting skillfully, let's talk a little bit more about what that means. Like, I love this word that's used in Buddhism. It's called like upaya is the word, which means skillful action. And I feel like that word, it kind of feels like it puts some like pressure on things, like act skillfully. Like, ooh, what if I don't know how to act skillfully? And the thing about it is, it doesn't mean that you need to be an expert to do anything. It just means as you approach doing something, that you approach it with as much awareness as you can, that you're careful with yourself as you do it. You know, that you're being careful, not to the point of like it stopping you from doing anything, but maybe starting out slower with things. Like, I feel like generally it's like a pretty good way to go with things is slower. Usually when we go faster with things, that can be when it's easier to make mistakes, to get tripped up on stuff. So it's like this like kind of not hurrying. Doing things skillfully is like not really being in a hurry about it. And listening to your body, listening to the messages that you get from your body. Like with anything, but especially with like the yoga example. You know, doing things skillfully means not just doing like what the yoga teacher says to do, but listening to your body as you are doing any kind of movement for the information that you're getting from that about whether you want to go deeper, whether you don't want to go deeper, whether you want to slow down, or maybe you want to speed things up a little, actually, is the information you're getting from your body. It's like that's part of skillfulness. I feel like before I was talking more about skillfulness as like this external thing of like noticing what's going on outside. Um, but it's also like an inner thing too. That's part of what's tricky is like you got to keep up with what's going on inside you and also notice what's going on in the world. There's a whole lot to keep up with. That's why we practice meditating and practice yoga. That these are, we call it practice because it is like practice for life. It's like a like more contained kind of setting where you can practice slowing down, going into more awareness about what's going on like outside of you and what's going on inside of you. And okay, another part that I want to talk about more is the letting go part. Because letting go of the result of your action, that kind of sounds like not taking accountability for what happens. And that is not the point. It is not about like saying like, oh, that's in the past, so I don't need to be responsible for that. Like, no, that is that is not the point. It's not like, oh, let it go. That's in the past. No. No, because like I said, the cycle keeps going, more stuff keeps happening, like anything that finishes, then there's new stuff that comes up and you bring a new intention and new actions and new levels of letting go. But um so this isn't about letting go of accountability or responsibility. You're still accountable for what you do. You're still responsible for what you do. What it's about is that you're not getting hung up on wishing that things were different from how they were. Like you don't wish that things turned out differently from how they actually turned out. Like, going back to the yoga example of the person touching their toes. They're like, that person's not just like, oh, I wish I could touch my toes. Just, I still can't do it. It's like, you just let that go. You accept that that's how things are now. And maybe, you know, you want to look into stretches that can like increase that kind of flexibility more. But you're not wishing that you already could do that. It's like, no, you can work towards that and you can see it, but you're not like, why can't I do that already? I wish I could already do that, and I am mad that I didn't do that this morning. I wanted to do that this morning, and that's not what happened. Like, that's just going to mess you up. It's just going to make you feel bad. And okay, another thing about the letting things go. Like, you're going to make mistakes at some point in life, like it's going to happen that you will make mistakes. Um, in like different stuff that you do. And the touching the toes example is like a kind of softball one, but you know, sometimes you'll make big mistakes that you'll say the wrong thing, you know, um, or like, yeah, just mistakes, mistakes. They happen, and they will. And the letting go part is part of how you can live with it, is by knowing that you came in with the best intention you could. You acted as skillfully as you could, which maybe it still wasn't perfect, or like, that you have learned more about how you could do things better since then. And the letting it go is how you can live with mistakes that sometimes you don't act so perfectly. And again, this isn't about not taking accountability or responsibility. It's about letting yourself have some peace, that like, okay, if you saw that you made a mistake, then take action to correct it as much as possible. Take action to be accountable to whoever you need to be accountable to for that. But you can let it go. You don't stay judging yourself or criticizing yourself about it. You like let it go. And that frees up so much energy for you to be able to act in more of the ways you want to act, instead of directing your energy towards like blaming yourself and judging yourself. Wow, cool. That was good. That was like a good one. All right. So that's a lot of what we're doing with any spiritual practice is we are working on these different parts. Like the intention, we work on that by growing love and compassion within ourselves by focusing our minds in ways to feel more love, feel more compassion. There are many practices in Buddhism that are designed to help you grow in feeling more loving towards yourself and towards everyone else. And then there's the skillfulness part, the action. That's something you work on by increasing your attention. There are also many practices in Buddhism, in yoga, that are designed to help you build your attention more, increase your capacity for attention, which, wow, it's really amazing when you get more control of your attention. When you learn to work with it more, it really does just make things feel easier. It's like fascinating how that works instead of feeling like the example I think of is like if you think about having like a box full of ping pong balls and you just like empty it in like a room and then the ping pong balls are like bouncing all over the place. That's kind of how like normal attention can feel. That's how it feels in my mind when I know I like need to take a break to meditate. I'm like when it just feels like so many like ping pong balls just like going everywhere inside my head. It's like, "Oh, hey, why don't why don't I sit down to meditate for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes to like quiet things down and get my focus back?" And then it's so much easier after that to do anything, to do whatever it is that I want to do. It's like honestly like miraculous transformation. It's like amazing how that works. Doing the practices to work with your attention helps you like get stronger in your attention. It's like lifting weights, like meditating. It's kind of like lifting weights. It's like it helps your attention muscles to get stronger. And then the last part, the letting it go part, that major spiritual practice, I'd say it relates so much to forgiveness, which, woo, so much there with forgiving ourselves, just forgiving yourself. Oh my gosh, just forgiving yourself is so huge to be able to do that. Um, and like really to bring that through in your life from like small mistakes, like one that came up for me that this happens all the time. Well, I don't want to say all the time, but it happens a little too often, is that I'll put some water on to boil to make some tea, and I forget. And then next thing I know, all the water has boiled down and the pot is like very hot and I'm like, "Oh no, ah." Um, you forgive myself. Oh, okay, that happened. And I have different tricks that I try to like help like I leave the light on in the kitchen. Sometimes I set a timer, but I don't beat myself up about it. I've thought about getting like an electric kettle or something, but like no, it's like that's not the point. The point isn't like the tea itself. The point is that sometimes we make mistakes, and how easily can you forgive yourself for it? How quick are you to go into like beating yourself up for it, you know? Or how quickly can you say, "Hey, that's okay." And maybe not just say, "Hey, that's okay," and let the same thing keep happening. Maybe find ways to support yourself, but not from a place of judgment or criticism, but from a place of love. So yeah, wow. That was beautiful. That was nice. That was good. I'm like happy with how that went. But also I'm letting go of the attachment to the result. I'm like, great job, Joelle. No, but we're not done yet here. But yeah, no, we said some good stuff here. And I want to close out with a quote from Ram Dass, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, who I've quoted him already before on this podcast, and I will again. So yeah, just we love Ram Dass. All right, so here he says this quote is on using daily life as a spiritual practice, and he says it's about doing the daily actions in life to come to a clearer state of consciousness, into deeper peace or enlightenment, or whatever metaphor you wish to use. The work you're doing becomes your practice rather than taking you away from your daily life. If you just start from where you are, not where you wish you were, then the game is to find the path to enlightenment as a method of working on yourself. So it's like what he's talking about is like that your daily life can be a spiritual practice too. It's not like you just need to be like sitting on a yoga mat like this to be having a spiritual practice. Like everything that you do can be part of this spiritual practice when you take this approach of bringing your intention, acting as best you can, and letting it go when it's over. That's it. That's so much of it. That's so much of it. And okay, so if you want to practice, we talked about how yoga, meditation, these are ways to practice. If you want to practice together, we can do that. We can do that. I am starting something up with Butch Yoga here. It's going to be called Butch Care Club. Butch Care Club. So that is coming soon, and it's going to be a community of butches who are supporting each other in our lives as we, do our best to care for ourselves and each other, like supporting each other in our self-care. We're going to have yoga, meditations, we'll have group classes, we're going to have group sharing, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. And if you want to get on the wait list for that, if you're not already, you can sign up I'll tell you the URL. Okay, it's bit.ly, bit.ly/waitlist for, that's the number 4, waitlist for Butch Care Club. And it's all lowercase. It's all lowercase there. And you just type in your email and you'll be on the wait list and you'll get updates when those are ready. And I'm working hard on getting those ready for you. So yeah, that's what we got for today. And yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to let go of the results of this now, and I will see you next week. Bye.